bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see from up here. The world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful.
Hi everyone, this is Monica Ramirez, Warrior of Love, and we're in Soul Talk. I am a transformational belief coach, and I have a special guest today. Her name is Marianna Leah. Do I say it right? Yeah, okay.
Marianna Leah Hernandez.
Well, let me tell you a little bit who she is. Marianna is a transcendental sacred feminine channel known for her channeling of Maria Magdalene. She's also a scribe, oracle, soul retrieval specialist, DNA activator, cellular light specialist, quantum vector healer, medium and psychic intuitive. She's also founder of the Light of the Love meditation program in New York. She has been teaching modified versions of Kemetic Yoga for the elderly and disabled for most of the decade. That is very, very interesting. You have things that I have not even heard about. And I have many questions for you. But one of that is close to me is Maria Magdalene. And I would like to ask you, first of all, I wanted to thank you for accepting this invitation in Soul Talk. And it's really my pleasure to have you here and having this conversation with you.
Pleasure to be here, an honor. Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
When do you start channeling Maria Magdalene?
So in 2018, I went to Israel. And I went there with a group which was led by Dana Mikuchi. She is an accomplished writer. She's very famous for a book called The Third Muse. She's done many spiritual quests in many different areas in the world, including France and Egypt. And she does the Maria Magdalena spiritual quests around the Michael line and the Magdalene line in France. And so I went with her, and she's also a journalist. I'm a former journalist as well. She had asked me to accompany her. And I went to Magdala, and Magdala is a newly archaeologically excavated town. Yes. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Monica, with yes. Magdala. Okay. Yes. So Magdala is very famous now. It became extremely famous now. It's becoming a very well-known visitor site, especially since they opened the borders up. But during the pandemic, it became extremely famous, not for its archaeological treasures, although it is known as the hometown of Maria Magdalena. It became known for its pilgrimage. It was one of the first places in Israel actually to do their virtual pilgrimage online and to be able to do tours. And so what they did was they did a giant focus on Maria Magdalena. So when I was there, and I'm a good friend of Padre Juan Solana. He's part of the basically the Catholic the church there. And when I was in Magdala, I had a very interesting experience, which then proliferated my ability to be able to channel the divine sacred feminine and Maria Magdalena specifically. I was I can't even explain the terminology behind it, but from what I understand, many spiritual leaders actually called it an apparition experience of Maria Magdalena that I actually had physically in Magdala. And that was what led me to be able to channel her, but not right away. It took me literally 3 years to figure out that it was her originally. But I had a very close encounter with her. I mean, literally within like 5 feet, I would say, maybe even less than that. I was under the impression during that encounter that there were other people that had actually seen her, but then found out that nobody else saw her but myself. And I've actually described her in many live streams, and I will be writing a book in the near future about my experience called The Journey of an Aspect, as I did find out that I do share an aspected energy of Maria. That's why when I actually, and it's very interesting, people have picked up on it in many circles, when I channel Maria Magdalena, I never say Mary Magdalene. I either say Mariam, or I say Maria Magdalena or Maria. And that's much closer to me. But it took me 3 years to figure out that it was her. And then once I did, kind of grasp the fact that it could have possibly been her, and my deepest connection to her, which is traced very directly into the ancient roots of the founder races, which I work closely with Phil Gruber, who actually traced my connection through past lives to the Brennau. And I do, when I channel Maria, I channel either in English, French, Hebrew, Aramaic, or light language known as the Anohazi, which is one of the oldest ancient forms of language ever was created across the galactic spectrum and the earthly spectrum. And so I was able to get myself into a state of peace to be able to accept that I was worthy to be able to connect with her on such a deep level, and connect with Isis and Kuan Yin and other divine feminine aspects. And then, only then, after going through a major dark night of the soul, battling like all women, and actually going to be doing a lot of classes and webinars on how to deal with the divine feminine trauma that we do as women have to heal, as well as the divine masculine. So we're all going through that right now. But it took me a long time before I could even pronounce or have any resonance to pronounce anything that she could ever put out as a message.
It is not easy to, when we open up and believing it's like, oh my God, one time not one time, several times, thought came. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and at the beginning I rejected him because like, no, it's not possible. The energy is so strong. And I did not feel that why he's communicating with me. No, it is not possible. And I reject him. It took me a while to, after several visitations, that I actually started accepting that I was worth it. And that's believing in ourselves is a big, big step, more one for channelers. And I was part of the order of Maria Magdalena in the ancient times. So I know what you're talking about. It was way, way before even in the time of Atlantis. That's where I believe it started, correct?
I believe it started in the founder races. I'm actually going to be, I'll let you know and I'll keep you posted. We will be doing with Phil the founders race webinar, which hasn't really ever been done before, but we're going to trace the connection so ancient into the galactic spectrum. But yeah, I mean, the brand, like at the time of creation, that's how deep the Magdalene lineage goes. And with the Nephilim and the Seraphim and the angelic race, it's all a connection. It's all connected with the Christ. Absolutely.
And yes, it is time to heal that part of us, because there is a deep, deep pain, and we're growing and we're changing and we're evolving, all the females in this planet, and we're speaking out. But there is still a lot of healing that we have to do to ourselves. There is the programming went so deep and so hurtful that even for us to accept, just to channel that we are deserve this, it goes to our broken parts that we have in all of us. That is, we're still growing and healing and in the process. But yes, I love this. And yes, please share when you have that ready, because that will be amazing. It is very important that even our male side, that we have to heal too. The females and the males also have to heal the female side. So like this division of their duality, it comes down.
Yes. And, just to add to that, I've spent some time, since I came back from Israel, connecting with the church, but not the Vatican, but through Padre Solana, in Magdala. And he's very unconventional. in the sense that he's not just like going by the Bible or by what the Vatican says or by what Catholicism has to say about Maria Magdalena, and the whole biblical story and the story of the Christ timeline. He wants to see it from his own perspective, which I truly, actually, deep down in my heart, believe that it was one of the disciples in his past lifetime. And we've kept in touch, especially during the pandemic. And he told me how rough things were. But what stood out to me is that he talked a lot about how amazing it was that when in 2016, when she was like, I call it acquitted in the church, she found that she was redeemed out of going from the classical aspect of being a prostitute to being a saint. And truthfully, if you look at the ancient rooted connection of what a prostitute is, it's actually innocence, in a sense. And a prostitute consideration, like what prostitutes meant as a job or an association to it in the ancient times, was so different from what we consider it now. And so that's what, because back then, women were revered to a certain extent until we lost that. And then we went into that age of silence during the Piscean era. But that's exactly what you're saying, Monica, is we're going through that age right now. We're getting out of that Piscean era mentality, that perception. We're growing into that metamorphosis, that morphogenetic process where we're leaning now towards balance and equality between both sexes, and specifically between the divine feminine and divine masculine. That's why this whole idea of the wound isn't only labeled and only pertains to the divine feminine. It pertains to divine masculine, because the divine masculine has to accept the divine feminine in them and has to become at peace with both of his parts, as the divine feminine has to be at peace with both of her parts. And so it was amazing. He said something to me like, it's amazing that she went from how far we've come as humans in our evolution, that someone who was considered a prostitute, and even he said it, and whether she was or not, we'll never know because we were not there, could turn into a saint. How many hundreds of years later?
But also, this take me to the memory of the Pisti Sophia, the whore and the saint.
Yeah.
And we are talking about the same thing, right?
Yes, it's exactly the same thing. And the thing is that, back then in the temples, what was the most reverence of a woman is that she was the divine nectar. She was the connection to the divine nectar. So to a man, a woman served as a huge honor. It was a huge honor to walk into a temple. And whether there was donations or whatever the case of connections and different things that were going on during certain festivals, and you know what I'm talking about, it doesn't really matter at this point. But a prostitute, meaning back then, is definitely not the same. And it wasn't about selling the body. It was about having sovereignty of the body and having sovereignty of who you are as a woman, and be able to acknowledge that, yes, just like we were just talking about, I am worthy. I am a woman, and I'm proud to say it. It took us as women hundreds and hundreds of years before we could even say, hey, I am proud to be a woman.
And like this, the religions in general, even before the Catholicism, we go to the Jewish and we go to the older religion that it was before the Catholics. They're the ones that they were already infestated the females, how the men see the women and how the women should behave and act and do before them. In the time of the goddess and the time of the matriarch, it did not exist this. We would have a full acceptance of our menstruation, our everything. It was very, very different. That it have infected our society to this day.
It's going to take us another couple of eons and couple of years more till we actually root out, I believe, that whole perception. That's the guidance that I got recently. I don't know if you agree with me, but it's going to take humanity a while to get that out of the human collective consciousness, because it was so ingrained during the Piscean era. And that was the whole point. It was a matter of control. But as the divine Sophia is currently returning onto the planet and flooding the planet, which, you know, auspiciously happened right before the pandemic, and at the high tides of the pandemic is more and more. And even with the current events that are going on right now, more plasma is being flooded onto the earth of the sun, of the light. And that's a lot of it rooted in a divine Sophia energy. And what I feel and what I've been channeled on recently is that not only is it a divine feminine that's really making its return, and it's making its return, I mean, in every possible way. It's the reemergence of the equality and the balance between the divine feminine and divine masculine that is slowly kind of taking place. And it's kind of just recalibrating and reintegrating the human collective consciousness. But again, what happens here happens also across the galactic spectrum, I believe. And so it has to be done as above, so below.
Yes, I agree. How is here is over there. I totally understand that. As a mother, of a teenager little girl, I remember when she had her period the first time, and we did a ceremony, so she feel comfortable with that. But later on, what I see she's a high schooler now, with all her friends and so forth. I understand that not everybody were raised by me. The other kids were raised by other parents. They have it. Then later on, she started rejecting that part of herself.
Oh, okay.
And it was not because I implant that, because I tried to celebrate. I did something completely contrary of the norm of the society, of how we see each other. But unfortunately, the system is already infected by the little girls by the same mothers. And those are the new generations that is being infected by it. So how do we can change that for the future generations to be having a different conscience and be accepting of her menstruation, her femininity, and self-love for all who they truly are? How we can change that? Do you have a message from her regarding this?
Well, I actually spent quite a bit of time in the last couple of months actually going through what you're talking about. I myself have struggled for most part of my life because I grew up in a very controlling environment. I'm from Ukraine. I'm from Kiev. So as you can imagine, everything that's going on the outside right now is, So for about a good month and a half since this war started, I spent healing my wounds from childhood. But it wasn't, and from what I understand, it wasn't specifically the childhood wounds themselves. It was my femininity that was at stake. And it took me a while to figure that out. I had a, big celebration for 222, and, with a big global giant spiritual community. It was a beautiful moment. I felt great. I felt good. I felt wonderful. I was like, okay, I'm glowing. Like, with this pandemic, not everybody gets to do that. I've had COVID. So I've been through a lot. And then my whole life, I've struggled with health challenges. So and being a woman and being an immigrant. So it was, it was rough. Of course, it was very rough. And then once this war hit, the biggest wound I uncovered was dealing with my mother and dealing with living in Ukraine and how difficult it was to being a woman. And not only that, having my father being Jewish and actually studying in yeshiva and a Jewish school for a good part of my life. That's where I learned Hebrew and Aramaic, where I, up until I learned what the prayers represented in speaking Hebrew, I prayed for a good number of years saying, thank God I'm not a woman. Because that is actually one of the morning prayers, believe it or not. And until you actually start studying what do those prayers represent, you don't really know what you're saying. So it was a difficult and challenging last couple of weeks until I actually sat down with myself and I actually talked to Mary one-on-one, and I did automatic writing, because that's really how, unless it's like a live stream or the channeling comes to me, that's really how channelings come. And I asked her, I said, what is it going to take? And I'm actually going to be teaching this in a couple of weeks with a friend of mine. What is it going to take for me to be able to heal that deepest divine feminine wound and accept that I am a woman? And how do I come into peace with myself? And the clear message, and I hope it gets out to whoever's dealing with this now, was you have to be at peace with who you are. It doesn't matter if you are a feminine aspect on this planet, an embodiment at this time in this reincarnation, or you are a male, because you were a male in many other lifetimes and a woman in many, many other lifetimes. Neither one of those roles were easy, and neither one of those lifetimes were easy. And there was no competition of it was easier because you were a woman or it was easier because you were a man. You pick this specific lifetime because it's a giant return of the divine feminine, and that nurturing, because it's nurture versus nature. We go back to the root core of psychology and philosophy. And that nurturing energy is what's really required on this planet for all women to break that silence, like Maria Magdalena was talking about after Yeshua was crucified. Because what was the biggest thing in the biblical, let's say, story? That she felt that, she needed to be silent, that she felt like she was silenced afterwards. And so for eons, that feminine wound of silence, which is not about being quiet, it carries many different meanings behind that one word. So to breaking that silence, that's breaking the bonds of that wound. It doesn't take a day. It doesn't take a moment. Rome wasn't built in one either. It could take a lifetime for someone. But the fact that you can try to look in the mirror and just become more at peace with yourself and say, I am good with being a woman in this lifetime. I am going to bloom where I am planted as the plant that I am planted as. And I'm going to plant my seeds, my legacy accordingly in the body that I'm in as who I am. And reclaim all of my soul parts, all of my soul fragments that I've lost over time, the energy I've lost in different places, in different countries, in Atlantis, in Lemuria, throughout the world's history, throughout the Earth's history, throughout the galactic history, and be able to understand that without those experiences, without those lifetimes, I wouldn't be here right now. And I wouldn't be who I am. And most importantly, I wouldn't be who I am becoming, because who I am becoming is the most authentic self of me. And whatever that represents, that is what's going to give me the most ultimate peace, because there could be chaos outside. But as long as my temperature, my weather, as long as that's called peace, then I can affect everyone I come in contact with throughout the entire world, physically or virtually, because my resonance exuberates peace. And that's the whole point of how we work and begin to work on healing the wound for all women and becoming that which we are becoming through the wisdom of Divine Sophia that is returning on our planet. I hope that answers that question.
That was beautiful. And yes, I totally agree with you. It is necessary, and that acceptance that we have to do to ourselves and fully love unconditionally. And love unconditionally means not judging, it's just accepting. You see, love just is, without asking anything or judging anything or trying to change or nothing. And that is true unconditional love. And that is important that we all understand that. We can love ourselves if I'm younger, if I lose weight, if this, if that, because then we're not loving ourselves. And that's something that we have to all our listeners, to understand that what is really unconditional love and accepting who you are, because that's what is going to actually create a change in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
understand.
Ahavat Olam. Monica, just to add to that, that is the biggest message that I carry for this year and for the rest of my life. Is Ahavat Olam, is eternal unconditional love, is one of the most ancient words spoken in the entire history of the dictionary, in every language. You could translate it into all languages. And that is the biggest message Miriam has ever given me. Every time I ask her, how do I live on this planet? The same response is Ahavat Olam. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I did become also, I am descendancy Jew for my mother's side, so I'm a Jew converted because I was looking for the Aramaic, the Hebrew, the Kabbalah, and all those kind of things. And I was looking at community. Then I realized that what I was looking in reality was inside of me and it was not in a religion. So I stepped back and I don't have a religion at all now anymore. But I do understand what you're talking about too.
So I've studied Kabbalah also, and I've spent most of my life looking for a community. Finally, I feel like I'm finding my soul tribe, including yourself, and I'm finding my community. But in this community, it's a community of unconditional love. There's no, like you said, there's no judgment, there's no ridicule, there's no competition. It's people coming together, like-minded souls, like-hearted souls that see things through the eyes of soul instead of through the mind and through the ego. And finally, thank God. But yeah, if we don't have that belonging inside our hearts, how could we see it outside? It's like a mirror. Everything around us is a mirror, right? So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And learning to become the observer, or else you're not going to observe when it's reflecting at you back. We're just going to get triggered our ego and like, oh, I'm just going to be mad.
Yeah, that's the message I got for a number of years. Stay on the periphery. I've actually never shared that message before. Stay on the periphery, meaning stay on the sidelines. Don't get involved in the drama. Don't get involved in the 3D life because you are on this world, but you're not of it. So why then would you get involved? And lose that energy when you could be putting that energy into helping the world instead of getting suckered into the drama of it and adding more fuel to the fire. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I wanted to ask you, you're also in your bio says that you're a cellular light specialist. What does that mean?
So I do a form of, it's almost like meditation / hypnosis. And it's a form of quantum vector healing where quantumly, with a person's permission and their higher self's permission and their soul's permission, I am able to access their subconscious, and I'm able to go in and remote view their cells, remote view their body, their past lifetimes, their subconscious, their blockages, different things, and be able to perform a form of spiritual surgery that does not require any kind of chemical invasive procedures of anesthesia or hospital stays. It does require, a proper intake of water, light diet prior, almost like a fasting right before and after. And it takes about 3 days for it to kind of integrate and recalibrate into the system. But during that time, I'm able to see people's organs and if they're going through stuff, their inflammations, illnesses, or diseases, if you might want to call it, or where their pain is located. Like they're going to the doctor and doctors cannot figure out what is going on in their bodies and they're going through enormous pain. I'm able to, like an X-ray, MRI, or a CAT scan machine, be able to actually viscerally see what is going on in their bodies. They have to be open to it, of course. It's a little bit of a different type of medical mediumship, but I'm able to infuse the light of love and from the central galactic sun and from divine Sophia and the Christed light into their bodies, so they are able to integrate that light and heal on a deep cellular level and remove blockages, old cellular imprints from their past lifetimes, or even this life from trauma. Yeah.
I know how to do that. Now there's different terminologies for things. I am very intuitive, and I have done that before, and with many of my clients, and it's always fascinating what we find in there. It's like, oh my God. But some people do not accept. I have learned also this in the hard way, and I hope you can answer me this. You can't heal people. They have to heal themselves. But there's people that needs that pain because that's the way they manipulate others. So they don't want to be healed at the same time. And it is fine. We can change their own path, their own choices. So how do you have, I believe you have encountered this with other people, correct? That they don't want to be healed. They just want the attention of your therapy over and over and over forever. Right?
I have encountered that. Actually, my mom, unfortunately, is one of the such patients. And I've had clients that have had those kinds of experiences. They're just not open. And the reason why they're not open is because they are either playing the role of victimhood, or if they're not playing the role of victimhood, no matter what they're going through, we still have to maintain that compassion towards whatever it is and hold space for them and hold the deepest understanding of why do they feel that way. But in those situations, if they are not open, the best thing to do is try to hold space for them and to support them in other ways. But I wouldn't engage, because if they are not open, things can actually go in reverse, and that gets a little dangerous and tricky. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And I see also that you're a quantum vector healer. Can you explain me that one? I have never heard that one before.
Sure. It's a form of angelic subconscious quantum therapy. So it's actually dealing with quantum mechanics, quantum physics. And what it is a subconscious modality where I'm able to access someone's subconscious during a session of hypnosis that you are safely conducting. I'm conducting it with them under supervision. And I'm able to go into their subconscious and pull out anything with their permission. Of course, it has to be with their permission. Anything that is currently blocking them from whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. Let's say they set an intent, or they want to see, okay, where did this come from? Why am I feeling this way? Why can I go, forward? What is my trauma? And the trauma doesn't have to be in this lifetime. The trauma could be 1800 years before. So safely with their permission, we do access their trauma. Sometimes we're not even given the privilege. There's many practitioners around the world that are doing that, mostly in Dubai and in the Middle East and in Italy. And we're not always able to see what that trauma is. The person is, though, able to see that. And a lot of those things get removed. The danger sometimes is that you have to make sure to work carefully. Because if you do not close the chapter, if you do not heal that timeline, let's say, or that fragment and return it back to the person, that specific trauma likes to reintegrate itself back into the system, even in this lifetime, and give you a hard time for a little while until you figure it out. But again, it could be also someone's blueprinted, timelined, energetic imprint that needs to come up. They have to learn that lesson, just like you said. And if that's the only way, that's the only way.
A question: when a client comes to you and they need any of your therapies, do you already know? Did they tell you, oh, I want a quantum vector healing, or a cellular light, or this, or a soul retrieval, or you just intuitively know what you're going to be working with them? How do you work with your clients?
Sure. We first have a conversation, a heart to heart. I want to get to know them. I want to see what, makes them tick, so to speak, what drives them. And my biggest thing is I want to help people, because I've been through so much in my life. That is my biggest way of giving back. That is my greatest fulfillment. That's what gives me joy. But in order for me to really, truly help anyone, I have to deeply understand them on a soul level. So even if they come to me and say, oh, let's pick a thing off the list and say, okay, I want a quantum vector healing because it sounds interesting. That's not really, what I feel is maybe possibly great for them. So I sit down and I talk to them, and it may be 1 or 2 times. And I say, okay, well, what's going on with you? What are you feeling? What are you looking to heal? What are you seeking in your life? What are you looking to accomplish in your life? What is primarily missing? What's taking away your joy? And let's work it from there. And then through the guidance system of my guides and intuition, we're able to together figure out what is the next game plan. Sometimes it's a simple meditation with them or hypnosis session that allows us to see what is really needed. Sometimes nothing on the list, sometimes just a conversation, and then maybe a small spiritual surgery or a small light therapy, or we go into past lifetime regression, and that's what helps them. So it's so individually based. It truly, truly is.
Yes. And you as a channeler, do you only channel Maria Magdalene, or you channel other beings like
You okay? Yes. Water. Definitely water.
Do you channel other beings of light?
I do. Maria is very close to me. I truly feel like we are twin aspects of each other. And I feel such a deep connection with her. But aside from Maria, I channel definitely Isis. Mother Isis is a big one for me. When there's challenges in my life, I ask for assistance from Isis, because Isis, went through quite a bit in her life. And she was very human as she was divine. Same thing with Maria. Kuan Yin, Sanat Kumara, Shiva and Shakti. I love channeling Serapis Bey, Hilarion, Mother Mary. I love, because there's so many amazing things that Mother Mary has channeled, and I will be doing a book on a lot of these channelings as well. And Yeshua, absolutely. And honestly, whoever comes from the galactics, or even if it's Baba G, whether it's like I said, Sana Kumara has been wonderful, Hilarion, whoever wants to put out the message within the light, I am open to it. I'm an open channel for that. And I always say that with protection from Archangel Michael, Metatron, and Sandalphon, I am an open channel of the light. And believe me, as a medium, I've been an open channel to the dark. I've played both sides. I've spent a long time, trying to battle that out. But, you get to a point where the protection becomes stronger because you're more accepting of it and you're able to protect yourself more. But as a medium, plenty of that. Yeah.
Yes, I have learned that one also in the hard way. I believe part of being in the process of channeling and believing in ourselves that we deserve it and we're worth it and so forth, we have to pass through that. We can say the new age groups that they are is like love and light, and everything is only love and light, and you can feel mad, you can feel sad, and there's no that dark night of the soul. They're lying to themselves because that's part of the process and how we grow and how we learn.
Absolutely.
No one learned from everybody learned from their mistakes, not from the successes.
Of course. I've had many guests, as I call them. I've had many entities. I used to actually have, I used to practice in Manhattan. I used to go and do sessions with a specific healer. He's called a vortex healer. That's another modality of actually removing entities from people. And there was a time where it just would be a consistent situation. My late 20s and like early 30s. And at one point we figured out that I actually, due to all of my traumas, especially divine feminine, there was like a leakage in my auric field where it would just allow entities to come in almost like a fan. It would just vacuum, suck them in. And it was interesting because one of the entities that had come in, very benign, but still needed to go into the light was actually a 17-year-old boy who I picked up during a shamanic ceremony. So you just, the space wasn't fully cleared. And, so things like that do occur. Exactly what you just said. It's not always love and light. We want to get to the point where our evolutionary stage is in that morphogenetic, metamorphic level of we are all love and light. But again, that was just recently also channeled by Maria to me, was you have to go deep into the darkness like Ishtar in order to find that light. So how can you really appreciate the light?
Yes.
You don't go through the deepest of the darkness first. I mean, light precedes darkness, darkness precedes light. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. It's not possible.
And as an artist myself, I can tell you how we're gonna say what it is actually happiness completely if you have not experienced before. That pain, that deep pain. We have to have that contrast so we can be grateful for where we are.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful for where I am because I know the darkness that I've been through. So for every light that comes and for every light that I experience, I'm grateful for each breath and every moment. Believe me.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And tell us a little bit about your foundation, about the Light of Love meditation program that you had in New York.
Sure. So the program opened in 2013. And it has been going on. So that's why I say it's almost a decade now. Next year, we're going to be, God bless, celebrating a full decade in March of 2023. I started the program with the elderly and the disabled at a senior center. And then it grew. I was able to actually teach it in local libraries in Brooklyn, New York. And we will now start to be doing that probably as of next year virtually. So it'll be open to the global community. So I'm very excited about that. But it does come together as a program, but together with the Kemetic Yoga, which is Egyptian yoga. I teach the oldest, most ancient yoga, modified version of it. So that way, people that are any age from infant, that when they become actually able to do the movements to the time of 120 years old and more, God bless. Anybody can do this. And if they're in a wheelchair, if they're in a walker, if they're with a cane or have any handicap, they can totally do this. I've had cancer patients do this type of yoga and meditation. And it's really geared to help the lungs to breathe and specifically geared for the spine. That's the yoga part. It recalibrates and restructures the spine and puts it back into center through specific various type movements. But these movements are not difficult to do. So anybody that's on the wheelchair, walker, or cane is able to do that just by sitting. And so when the Egyptians believed that if there was even a slight 0.5 millimeter sway out of alignment in your spine, then that could lead to a major potential disease. And that is what the Egyptians believed. So this yoga, which is scientifically the original Kemetic, but modified version, is geared to realign the spine, not as a chiropractor, freely, without insurance needed or copays, to be able to realign the spine naturally to fit the individual's spinal curve without having to do any kind of MRIs or invasive procedures. The individual, by doing these specific set movements with specific breath, is able to put their spine back together. And that's the greatest part about this Egyptian yoga. It has helped me. It has helped hundreds of people so far. It has taken people out of surgery that was potentially, I've seen people move their shoulders, move their legs, move their necks. I myself was on a walker and a cane for a number of months. I'm a brain aneurysm survivor, 1% in the world that survives this kind of brain aneurysm. And I made this program when I had it.
Wow.
And I taught with a walker and a cane for months, 2 classes per week. It was absolutely fantastic. I've seen breakthroughs in people with high blood pressure, in cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's been an amazing program. And the Light of Love meditation, it's a creative visualization that viscerally takes people into the beach where they feel sand in their toes. Meanwhile, they never step foot onto the beach and they're sitting inside a ballroom of a senior center or a place in Brooklyn, New York, whatever. I've actually taught at the Brooklyn Museum of Art, right at the rooftop underneath the, like the sunlight. And it's a creative visualization where people get to visualize themselves in a different timeline field, universal field of the universe, and be able to heal themselves from within using their own breath and their own visualization. And that's the most amazing part about it. So thank you for asking me that.
And I wanted to ask, I see here that you have a cosmic conversation every Thursday at 6 p.m.
Well, no, I only did, I'm part of the Wish Alliance, so I'm an ambassador.
Oh, okay.
And the Wish Alliance holds cosmic conversations every Thursday. Yeah,
Oh.
it actually, yeah. I was just there last Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a message that you would like to give us all before we close?
Sure, absolutely. So Monica, let's close our eyes if you don't mind for a minute. I'll try to do it in light language, which I actually, channel, like I said, the Anahazi light language version. So it's one of the most ancient ones from the Branagh races, which is like the founder races. So let's close our eyes. Let's take a nice deep breath in. And a nice deep exhale out. Another nice inhale in through your navel. The Shahina breath is what I would call it. And nice exhale out. Another nice, long, deep breath in. Hold. Allow it to penetrate deep into your ribs and deep into your lungs, into each alveoli, and into your heart space. And exhale out. And just one more deep breath in. Does anything that you wish to let go of, to open space for more light, and anything new that you wish to create to come in? Breathe it out. We will open the message. We thank the guides in advance for whoever does provide this message. We will open the platform up first with light language for anyone that is listening on the call or will be listening in the ethers. Kedeshesi ala kiami. Kedeshesi ala kiati sumala kianoma. Kedeshesi ala kiati shmasi kilati mu. Kedeshesi ala kiami atani makiano sume kilasi atingini kani nyamiati numa. Kedeshesi kliati amoti kesiale kumatiashi siliami ati kesiale mi. Kedeshesi kate valakiane siami atari. Take a nice deep breath in. A nice deep, deep, deep breath out. Just one more deep breath in. Allow your body to relax in each cell. And a deep breath out. Kedeshia sela mia tekela mia dinistri siala como ta selai. Kedeshia siala como te leñas que siama te kalekai como siala tomakaisa. Kilashia sila kiate malakia sila nimi kenenakona kasiala kamate sisilia kilebiento klakiki. Kia no makesha selia. Dear light warriors, those that have volunteered their services to come onto this planet, those that have been here before, those that have never been here, those that are coming, and those that will come. To those we say, today on this blessed day, of what is on your earth called now Holy Saturday, do not fear the outside effects or your external circumstances, for fear is strictly an illusion. That which you've heard before, it is not a cliche. It is a reminder to anyone that is beginning their journey of becoming. For those that have been on a journey for a while, and those that are still growing into their own, a friendly reminder must come from the ethers to remember your stage, your roles, to remember why it is that you have come here, to remember what is your divine blueprint here on earth. What is that contract you had ethically signed before you had embarked on this planet? What is your role? What is your mission, as you call it? What is the true purpose of your existence on this planet? For we all know Mother Earth, Mama Kia, Pachamama, is recalibrating, reintegrating its lost days of Atlantis and Numeria, and many other previous ancient civilizations that have come and that have gone. Divine Sophia is entering the planet, piercing it through its plasma. Rays of light to the Porolina sea energies are coming through, and its divine wisdom is returning back onto its planet, together with the Shekhinah teachings, that all the divine who has vowed its sacred vow to protect the divine must begin its process of teaching the Shekhinah teachings upon earth. The divine feminine, divine masculine are coming into their own and merging with each coming day. The Vesika Pisces, which is the connectional point, the togetherness and the binding of the union, the cosmic reemergence of the union of divine feminine, divine masculine that is entering this planet, is coming to fruition. It has not an end date, only the beginning. We are asking you, way showers, light warriors, warriors of the light, of the love of the divine, the unconditional, Ahavat Olam, as it says in the Aramaic, and Ahunekali in Anochaze and other light language platforms, to return back to love. We are asking you to return back to the understanding that fear is an illusion and it does not exist. There is no wrong. There is no right. There is no right way or wrong way. It is how you perceive each experience to be, negative or positive, like ions, minus or plus. We are asking you all to take your rightful places at this stage. We are asking you all to remember your joy and return joy to its rightful owner. We are asking you all to remember the harmony and the balance of your being once again. Maybe you have not remembered it for eons, but now you are all going through a process of remembering. And may it be as it may, we are all together in this one platform, working with you all as we are working with each other. We are one. We are working together to enhance the ability for Mama Kia to finally break free into the unknown and to be the 5D she is meant to be, and to recalibrate and to fully heal from all its former transgressions and heal all the traumas from the human consciousness collective data, from the Akashic Records data, and from the galactic consciousness collective data. We are here with you. You are not alone. You belong where you are, so bloom where you are planted. That will become the key aspect you all will be experiencing. Bloom where you are planted. Be grateful for each moment, for ingratitude and grace and total utter forgiveness. You will find yourselves in the highest of vibrations because you will be embodying and expressing unconditional love. We love you all. We are always with you. Ask us for guidance and ask us for help whenever you see fit. We always answer your call and heed our clarion call to step up and show up to the platform of all life, for you are all keys that will open up innumerable doors to the platform of this life. Thank you. Namaste. It has been a pleasure connecting with you. This message comes from the Pleiadian Command Center, both from Yeshua, Maria Magdalena, and Mother Mary today. Thank you. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Maria Magdalena. It is done.
It is done.
And yes, let us know when is going to be your next class that you're going to have.
Absolutely.
So like that we can promote it, because it is important. It is already the time to change. And we can change the consciousness of the whole world.
Yes.
Together.
Yes, change is inevitable.
Yes,
Thank
God. It was my pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. It was my pleasure to be here. And thank you to the guides, and to Maria, and to Yeshua, and to Mother Mary. Thank you.
And thank you for all our listeners. And if this resonates with you, please share this video. This information, it might help someone else. Thank you. This is Monica Ramirez, Warrior of Love. And thank you for being here. And thank you for being you.
Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be.